Small Giants, Companies That Choose to Be Great Instead of Big, by Bo Burlingham. Introduction. Imagine for a moment that you've built something incredible. You started with nothing but an idea, a recipe you cooked up in your mother's kitchen. You poured your heart, your savings, and years of your life into it. And against all odds, it worked. Your company, Cliff Bar, is a success. You're making $39 million a year. People love your product. And now, the biggest names in the food industry are knocking on your door. One of them, a giant conglomerate, offers you a deal that sounds like a dream. They want to buy your company for $120 million. Your 50% share would be $60 million. Think about that. $60 million. Enough money to never work another day in your life. Enough to do anything, go anywhere. The papers are drawn up. The lawyers and bankers are waiting in the other room. This is the moment every entrepreneur dreams of. This is the finish line. But as you stand there, ready to sign, something feels terribly wrong. Your hands start to shake. You can't breathe. A wave of panic washes over you, so intense you have to excuse yourself and step outside for a walk. And as you circle the block, weeping, you realize you're not about to celebrate a victory. You're about to mourn a loss. You're about to sell the very thing that gives your life meaning. So what do? Do you take the money, or do you walk back into that room, send everyone home, and bet everything you have on a different kind of dream? This is the question at the heart of Bo Burlingham's modern classic, Small Giants. It's a book that challenges one of the most fundamental rules of the business world, the idea that you must always grow, that bigger is always better. What if that isn't true? What if there's another path? A path where you choose to be great instead of just big? Over the next hour, we're going to explore that path. We're going to meet the leaders who walked away from massive paydays, turned down franchising deals, and refused to go public, all because they had a different definition of success. They wanted to build companies with soul. Companies that were deeply connected to their communities, their customers, and their employees. Companies that had a special, almost magical quality, a quality the author calls mojo. By the end of our journey today, you will understand the secret to building a business that doesn't just make money, but makes a difference. You will see that the greatest rewards in life and in business often come not from saying yes to every opportunity, but from having the courage to say no. So let's begin by stepping back into that moment of choice. The moment when you have to decide what success really means to you. Book summary. Every successful entrepreneur, sooner or later, arrives at a crossroads. It doesn't always come with a $120 million price tag, but the choice is the same. It's the moment when the world tells you to get bigger, expand faster, and cash out. For Fritz Maytag, the man who essentially started the craft beer revolution in America, that moment came in the early 1990s. His company, Anchor Brewing, was a San Francisco legend. His Anchor steam beer was so popular he couldn't make it fast enough. Distributors were begging for more. Restaurants were pleading. He even had to fly to Reno to personally turn down a massive order from the new MGM Grand Casino because he simply couldn't fulfill it without sacrificing quality. The pressure was immense. The obvious answer was to expand. Raise a lot of money, maybe go public, and build a bigger brewery. That's what everyone does, right? Every business has to grow or die. He started down that path, looking into a public offering. But something felt wrong. He and his top team spent hours talking, not just about business, but about life. What did they enjoy doing? What were their goals? They realized they loved the company just as it was. They didn't want to take it to the moon. They valued the craft, the intimacy, the pride they felt in what they were making. And then, Fritz had a revelation. He said, "I realized you could have a small, prestigious, profitable business, and it would be all right. Like a restaurant. Just because it's the best around doesn't mean you have to franchise. You can stay as you are and have a business that's profitable and rewarding and a source of great pride." So they made a decision. They chose not to grow. They chose to be great, right where they were. For Ori Veensvig and Paul Saginaw, the founders of the world-famous Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the moment was less dramatic but just as profound. It was 1992. The deli was a massive success. Articles had been written in the New York Times. People raved about their sandwiches. But Paul felt they were becoming complacent. He worried that competitors would start copying them. The logical next step, the one everyone suggested, was to open more Zingerman's delis in other cities. But Ari was dead set against it. "I didn't want to spend my time flying to Kansas City to see some mediocre Zingerman's," he explained. For him, the magic was in being part of something great and unique to Ann Arbor. He told Paul, "If that's what you want, maybe you should do it, but it's not something I want to be associated with. I'll leave." This disagreement could have ended their partnership. Instead, it launched a 2-year debate. They met regularly at a picnic table next to the deli, reading, talking, and trying to imagine a different kind of future. What they came up with was brilliant. Instead of replicating the deli, they would create a community of businesses right there in Ann Arbor. A bakery, a creamery, a mail-order business, a training company, each a separate small business, but all sharing the Zingerman's name, philosophy, and commitment to quality. This strategy allowed them to grow without losing the very things that made them special: their connection to their community, their intimacy with customers, and the quality of their food. They found a way to get bigger by staying small. These stories show us that the choice is real. But making that choice is one thing. Sticking to it is another entirely. Because the moment you find a little success, the world starts pushing you in a direction you may not want to go. And the pressures come from everywhere. Sometimes, the pressure comes from the very nature of your industry. Martin Babinek started his company, TriNet, with a simple dream. He wanted a small lifestyle business that would give him independence and control over his life. What he ended up building was one of the fastest-growing companies in America. Why? Because he entered the business of professional employer organizations, or POs. It's an industry where scale is everything. The bigger you are, the better the insurance rates and services you can offer your clients. You can't have a little gem of a PO. To survive, you have to get big, fast. Getting big required money? A lot of it. And that's the first trap. To fund that growth, Babinek had to bring in outside investors. First, a small group of angels who saved him from bankruptcy. Then, a large European company that bought a controlling interest. With each step, he gave up a little more of the independence he craved. He was still the CEO, but he was no longer a free agent. He had a responsibility to his investors, and their primary goal was growth. His dream of a small lifestyle business was gone, a casualty of the industry he had chosen. Even if your industry doesn't demand scale, growth itself creates an insatiable need for cash. Fritz Maytag had this epiphany early on. He explained it with a simple example. Let's say you sell 100 units of something and make a $3 profit. To grow by 10%, you need to make 10 more units. But what if each new unit requires a $2 investment in equipment or materials? You'd need $20 to grow, but you only have $3 in profit. You can't fund your own growth. You have to borrow or sell a piece of your company. And every time you do that, you lose a little more control. This is how many entrepreneurs lose their companies? Because they're too successful. But the most intense pressures often come from the very people you're trying to serve, your employees and your customers. Great companies need great people. But great people are ambitious. They want challenges. They want opportunities to grow. If you don't provide a path for them, they'll leave. Danny Meyer, the celebrated New York restaurateur behind Union Square Hospitality Group, faced this constantly. He knew that to keep his best people, he had to create new opportunities. That's one of the reasons he opened more restaurants. He said, "I've chosen to surround myself with people who are eager to grow. They're ambitious. Part of my job is to be aware of people's aspirations, and to harness them for the good." The desire to provide a future for his team became a powerful force for growth. And then there are your customers. When you create something wonderful, people want more of it. Bill Butler started his construction company living in a California commune. For years, his company didn't even have a listed phone number. But people loved his work. By 1989, he was doing $20 million a year and felt completely overwhelmed. He had projects in 5 states and couldn't keep up. The quality was slipping, and the company wasn't making money. He knew he'd screwed up. He had said yes too many times. So he and his team made a radical decision. They gave up their licenses in other states. They cut their client list from 25 down to 10, even firing their biggest client, which accounted for half their business, because they were demeaning to work with. But even then, the pressure didn't stop. Good clients, like Target, kept asking him to take on more projects. Turning them down was, as he said, very, very tough. Sometimes he'd have to recommend his best competitors for a job, just to keep a good client happy. It's an entrepreneur's natural instinct to take every piece of business that comes your way. Saying no requires a level of discipline that few possess. Finally, there's the most subtle pressure of all, the pressure from our own ego. Our culture celebrates big. It celebrates fast growth. We hear about the Michael Dells and the Mark Zuckerbergs, and we start to feel like we're falling behind. Jay Goltz, founder of Artist Frame Service in Chicago, called himself a recovering entrepreneuraholic. He was featured in Forbes as a biz kid in his 20s and spent the next 15 years trying to live up to the hype. He was driven by a single goal: to build a $100 million company. He couldn't have told you why. It was just the number. That ambition nearly drove him to ruin. He hit rock bottom at age 41, out of cash while trying to launch a new home and garden store, and realized the immense stress was self-imposed. He had a revelation. He realized that the people who build giant companies from scratch are different. They have a stomach for risk that he didn't. And more importantly, he realized he could be happy without it. He could lead a good life, have a great business, and make enough money without going crazy. It was one of his own employees who opened his eyes. At her retirement party, a woman named Lily Booker stood up and thanked him. She had been with another company for 10 years before it closed. In her 50s, she thought she'd never get another job. "I just want to thank you for giving me a chance," she told him. In that moment, Goltz realized his success wasn't measured by a number in a magazine. It was measured in the lives he had touched. He started seeing all the starfish in his company, the people whose lives were better because his business existed. He realized he didn't need to be the biggest. He just needed to make a difference to the people right in front of him. So what happens when a company makes this choice? When it withstands the pressures and decides to focus on being great, it develops a special quality. An energy. A buzz. Author Bo Burlingham calls it mojo. But where does this mojo come from? It's not one single thing. It's a combination of deep, intimate relationships that the company cultivates. It starts with the place the company calls home. Think about Righteous Babe Records, the music company founded by singer-songwriter Ani DeFranco. She could have based her company anywhere: New York, Los Angeles. But she chose to stay in her hometown of Buffalo, New York. At the time, Buffalo was a city that had seen better days. It was the butt of jokes. Its economy was in the doldrums. But Ani was fiercely loyal. She insisted on using local suppliers for everything: t-shirts, CDs, posters. She was responsible for creating over 100 jobs in a city that desperately needed them. And then she did something that became a symbol of hope for the entire city. There was a beautiful historic church on Delaware Avenue, the Asbury, Delaware Methodist Church. It was falling into ruin. Stones were falling off its steeple. The city was going to demolish it. But Annie and her business partner, Scott Fisher, decided to buy it. They bought the ruin and began the painstaking work of restoring it, turning it into their company headquarters, a concert venue, an art gallery. As the scaffolding went up, the people of Buffalo took heart. They saw someone from their own town, someone who could have left and never looked back, investing in their future. As one columnist said, there was a feeling of communal uplift to see it getting done. This is what Burlingham calls being rooted. Small giants are so intimately connected to their communities that it's hard to imagine them anywhere else. The company shapes the community, and the community shapes the company. It's like what the French call terroir in winemaking. The unique combination of soil, climate, and sun in a particular region gives the wine its distinctive character. You can't replicate it anywhere else. In the same way, a small giant draws its character from the spiritual terroir of its community. Zingerman's is a perfect reflection of its home, Ann Arbor, a quirky, intellectual, food-loving college town. That's why they debated for 2 years about opening a location at the Detroit airport, just 25 miles away. They were afraid of diluting that essential Ann Arbor connection. That deep-rootedness is a source of their strength. It gives them an identity, a sense of place, a soul. This intimacy extends beyond the community to the customers and suppliers. It's about building ties that go deeper than a simple transaction. The best example of this is Danny Meyer's concept of enlightened hospitality. Meyer realized early on that there's a difference between service and hospitality. Service, he said, is technical. It's about getting the order right, delivering the food while it's hot, cleaning up a spill. You can train anyone to do that. Hospitality, on the other hand, is emotional. It's about making people feel like you're on their side. There's a wonderful story about a columnist who was having lunch at one of Meyer's restaurants, Tabla. She accidentally turned in her chair and slammed into a server, sending a tray of water glasses crashing to the floor. The staff was instantly there, cleaning up, patting her down with napkins, and bringing a bottle of champagne to the table, on the house. That was excellent service. But then, Meyer himself came to the table. "It was my fault," she said. He replied, "I'm sure it wasn't your fault." He knew it was her fault, but he was trying to relieve her of her guilt so she could enjoy her meal. That was hospitality. And it didn't end there. As she was leaving, the server who dropped the tray came over to apologize for his clumsiness. She insisted it was her fault, but he, like his boss, graciously assumed the blame himself. That experience is what enlightened hospitality feels like. It's a genuine, personal connection. It's the feeling that people don't just want your business, they genuinely care about your well-being. This commitment to personal connection shows up in different ways. Cliff Bar does it through grassroots marketing. Instead of pouring millions into TV ads, they sponsor thousands of local sporting events, giving them direct, face-to-face contact with the people who use their products. They build an emotional connection with their consumers. City Storage, the record storage business, did it by making their employees the heart of their customer relationships. The founder, Norm Brodsky, and his wife Elaine trained every single employee, not just customer service reps, but warehouse workers, everyone, in customer service. They wanted to make prospects feel welcome the moment they walked in the door. The effect was immediate. One prospect, after a tour, told Brodsky, "Every one of your employees was smiling, and they all said hello. Because of that, in fact, I've decided to give you the business." But the deepest, most important relationship of all is the one a company has with its own people. This is the true source of a small giant's mojo. The companies in this book understand a fundamental truth: the customer comes second. That might sound shocking, but think about it. How can you expect your employees to deliver enlightened hospitality or create amazing customer experiences if they themselves don't feel valued, supported, and cared for? You can't. The magic that customers feel on the outside is a direct reflection of the magic that employees feel on the inside. This is what Burlingham calls a culture of intimacy. It's a relationship so close that employees never doubt that the company and its leaders care about them personally. Michelle Howard's story from Echo, a manufacturer of backup alarms in Boise, Idaho, is a powerful example. She started at Echo as a temporary worker. She was 23, a single mother with 3 small children. Her husband had just left her. She had no marketable skills and was living on food stamps. "It was," she said, "the worst thing that ever happened to me." Echo gave her a chance, first as a temp, then as a full-time employee. When she was reluctant to move into a more challenging customer service role, her manager encouraged her, saying, "I think you can handle it." She struggled to make ends meet at home, and the company knew her situation. "They let me take advances from my paycheck," she recalled. When her son became seriously ill, the head of human resources brought food and flowers to her house. When she reflected on how she managed to pull through that difficult time, she said, simply, "God and Echo." The company helped her get a loan for the down payment on a house, a place where each of her kids could finally have their own room. "I never thought that would happen to me, ever," she said. Her gratitude was immense. "Echo cares about the people who work here," she said, "and we care about each other. I want to help make this company as successful as it can be." That feeling, that deep, emotional attachment, doesn't just happen. It's cultivated. It starts with a higher purpose. It's about making the work meaningful, reminding people that what they do matters. At Zingerman's, it's about enriching customers' lives with great food. At Anchor Brewing, it's about mastering the art of beer making. It also involves reminding people in unexpected ways how much the company cares. Norm Brodsky at City Storage had what he called his knock your socks off policy. When he learned his new executive assistant was working a second job cleaning offices at night to save money for school, he didn't wait for her 6-month review. He called her into his office, gave her a raise equivalent to what she was making at the second job, and told her she couldn't work there anymore because he needed her fresh and well-rested. Then he told her about the company's policy to pay for any employee's schooling after 1 year. She was beaming. He had no doubt she knew the company cared about her. But creating this culture isn't just about being nice. It's about designing a world, a small society with its own rules and values. It's about building a place where people want to live and work. Riel Precision Manufacturing, a maker of hinges and clutches in Minnesota, took this idea further than almost any other company. The founders, 3 refugees from the corporate giant 3M, wanted to create a business that would promote harmony between work life and family life. Their company was built on a foundation of Judeo-Christian values and a deep sense of social responsibility. This wasn't just talk. They lived it. One day, an engineer named Joe Arnold was assigned to develop a hinge for a display box. He was excited by the technical challenge until he learned the end client was a cigarette manufacturer. The box would be used to sell cigarettes. Arnold had a crisis of conscience. He had 6 children. He couldn't bring himself to work on a project that would help sell a product that kills people. In most companies, the story would end there. The manager would say, "Fine, I'll give it to someone else." But that's not how things worked at Riel. The company's culture was built on trust and open debate. Arnold took his concerns to the salesperson on the account, John Strom. Strom was under immense pressure to bring in new business. The company had been through a slump, and everyone had taken a pay cut. This contract was a huge opportunity. They couldn't resolve it. They brought it to their larger group. They still couldn't agree. Finally, they took it to one of the co-CEOs, Bob Carlson. Carlson's response was remarkable. He listened, and then said, "It'll be interesting to see how you guys figure this out." He didn't make the decision. He trusted his people to make it. In the end, the group's leaders decided to turn down the contract. They gave up a significant piece of business because one person felt it violated his conscience, and the company's process respected that. The key issue, as everyone involved said later, was trust. Not every small giant operates like Riel. Jay Goltz, the recovering entrepreneuraholic, would probably roll his eyes at that story. His approach is more direct. "You know, life is unfair but merciful," he says. "Business is unmerciful but usually pretty fair." He believes a boss has to make demands. He has a strict policy on tardiness. If you're late 6 times in a quarter, you're out. No excuses. And yet, his company, the Goltz Group, inspires the same incredible loyalty. His production manager, Dale Zyman, once turned down a job offer from another company that would have paid him $10,000 more per year. He told Goltz, "You don't have to pay me more. I'm not going anywhere. I love it here. I hope to be here forever." Why? Because Goltz is a teacher. He's obsessed with quality and hates mediocrity. His factory walls are covered with his original sayings. "One who sails by on excuses will drown in a sea of mediocrity," or "Our biggest competition is mediocrity." He has created systems for everything, from tracking daily production to avoiding framing mistakes. He empowers his people within those systems. He's learned that his biggest responsibility is not to scream at people when they make a mistake, but to let them off the hook and use it as a teaching moment. He has created his own version of Goltz Gulch, a world built on accountability, quality, and continuous learning. These stories are inspiring, but they also carry a warning. Building a small giant is not a guarantee of permanent success. In the 10 years after this book was first published, some of the companies profiled faced devastating challenges. Their stories reveal the crucial, non-negotiable financial principles that even the most purpose-driven companies must follow to survive. Riel Precision Manufacturing, the company with the incredible culture, nearly went bankrupt. Their mistake? They abandoned their historical commitment to protecting their gross margins. To avoid layoffs, a core part of their culture, they decided to chase market share in the low-margin, highly competitive business of laptop hinges. They made concessions on price to get volume. This decision set off a disastrous chain reaction. They invested millions in automation to handle the volume, which made them even more dependent on it. Price pressure from Asian competitors squeezed their margins until they were losing money on every hinge they made. The company was plunged into a 6-year crisis that destroyed much of the trust and culture they had spent decades building. They had to endure 3 rounds of layoffs, the very thing they had been trying to avoid. They only survived because a new CEO, Kyle Smith, had the courage to make the painful decision to get out of the commodity hinge business and refocus the company on high-margin, innovative products. He saved the company by returning to the principle it had forgotten: you must protect your gross margins. Nick's Pizza and Pub, the beloved Chicago area restaurant with a fanatical following and an employee turnover rate far below the industry average, also came to the brink of disaster. The founder, Nick Cirillo, was a visionary when it came to culture, but he was financially illiterate. He financed his expansion with massive amounts of debt, without ever really understanding his balance sheet. By 2011, he owed about $3 million. The interest payments alone were crushing him. He was losing $30,000 a month and was just weeks away from being unable to make payroll. In a last, desperate move, he sent an email to his customers, taking full responsibility for his mistakes and asking for their help. The community responded in a way that was nothing short of miraculous. Sales doubled overnight. The flood of support bought him enough time to restructure his debt and save his business. His story is a powerful lesson. A great culture can't save you from a bad balance sheet. The most tragic story is that of Rhythm and Hues, the Academy Award-winning visual effects company that created the stunning visuals for Life of Pi. It was a company beloved by its employees. The founder, John Hughes, was passionate about taking care of his people, providing them with some of the best health benefits in the country. But the company was operating with a broken business model. The visual effects industry was being squeezed by the major movie studios on one side, and government subsidies that lured production away from Hollywood on the other. Companies were forced into fixed-bid contracts for projects whose scope was constantly changing. Margins were razor-thin, if they existed at all. For years, Hughes managed to keep the company alive through sheer force of will and brilliant cash flow management. But in 2012, a series of project delays cost the company millions. He couldn't raise the capital he needed. In February 2013, just days before his team would accept an Academy Award for their work, he had to lay off over 250 people and file for bankruptcy. In a later interview, a tearful Hughes reflected on his choices. He had tried to avoid layoffs because he knew it would destroy the culture. And, well, instead we're in bankruptcy, he said. So I ended up destroying Rhythm and Hues anyway. The lesson is stark. A company with mojo must also have a sound financial structure. It must protect its gross margins, maintain a healthy balance sheet, and operate with a viable business model. Without these, even the greatest culture in the world will not save you. If a company can navigate these challenges, it faces one final, ultimate test: how to pass its magic on to the next generation. How does a small giant outlive its founder? The story of University National Bank and Trust in Palo Alto serves as a cautionary tale. In the 1980s, it was the quintessential small giant. The founder, Carl Schmidt, built the bank on the heretical notion that limited growth was better than fast growth. He created a zany, fun-loving culture with extraordinary customer service. But in 1993, he had a heart attack and knew he had to think about retiring. He couldn't find a suitable successor who shared his unique vision. So, he did what seemed like the responsible thing. He sold the bank to a large corporation, Comerica. And just like that, the magic was gone. The bank was swallowed by a giant, and the unique culture that had made it special disappeared. So how can it be done right? Fritz Maytag at Anchor Brewing showed one way. When he decided to sell, he was painstaking in his search for a buyer. His requirements were clear: they had to be from San Francisco, they had to be committed to the brand's heritage, and they had to have the resources to grow the company without flipping it. It took him 4 years, but he finally found the right partners. They have since grown the company dramatically while remaining deeply committed to its San Francisco roots and the values Maytag established. Gary Erickson and Kit Crawford at Cliff Bar are taking a different approach. They know that for the company to endure, it has to move from being entrepreneur-centric to being vision-centric. They created 5 aspirations: sustaining the brands, the business, the people, the community, and the planet, that serve as the company's constitution. They also sold 20% of the company to the employees through an ESOP, giving everyone a stake in protecting that vision for the future. But perhaps the most evolved approach is the one being taken at Zingerman's. After Paul Saginaw had a heart attack in 2009, he and Ori Venzweig realized they had to figure out how to hold the community of businesses together after they were gone. They embarked on a multi-year project to reinvent the company's governance. They created a path for employees to become owners, not just of their individual businesses, but of the entire community. They are building a structure designed to outlast them, to ensure that the magic they created can be passed down from one generation of partners to the next. Ultimately, what all these stories come back to is something Bernie Goldhirsch, the founder of Incorporated magazine, understood deeply. He saw entrepreneurs as artists, and business as their form of expression. He creates a business from nothing, just a blank canvas, he said. Somebody goes into a garage, has nothing but an idea, and out of the garage comes a company, a living company. It's so special what they do. They are a treasure. The leaders of the small giants are artists. Their passion is not just for what their company makes, but for the company itself. For Fritz Maytag, it was the art of brewing beer the traditional way, because it feels good. For Selima Stavola, the dressmaker who worked for 59 years with only one employee, it was the art of making a client beautiful. "My work is a joy to me," she said. "I don't want it to become work." For Norm Brodsky, it was the art of seeing a boring industry like record storage in a completely new way. Their passion is their compass. It's what allows them to navigate the temptations of growth and the pressures of the market. They understand that the business is simply the means they use to pursue their passion, not the other way around. And that is the secret. That is where the mojo comes from. They have chosen to focus on creating something great and unique, something that adds real value to the world. The financial success they achieve is not the goal. It is a byproduct of their art. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through small giants, it's worth pausing and asking what the central message is for us today. In a world that often seems obsessed with unicorns, IPOs, and scaling at all costs, this book feels more relevant than ever. It's a quiet, powerful reminder that there is another way. The most profound lesson, for me, is the redefinition of success. The leaders in this book didn't stumble into greatness. They chose it. They made a conscious, often difficult, decision to prioritize purpose over profit, quality over quantity, and relationships over transactions. They understood that the scoreboard of business isn't just about revenue and market share. It's about the quality of the lives you touch, the lives of your employees, your customers, and the people in your community. This isn't a soft idea. As the stories of failure show us, being a small giant requires immense financial discipline. You have to be better at business, not worse. You have to understand your numbers inside and out, because you don't have the cushion of venture capital or public markets to save you. You have to build a company that is fundamentally healthy, from its balance sheet to its soul. So, how can you apply these ideas, right now, in your own life or your own projects? First, take a moment to define what great means to you. Forget about what the world tells you to want. What kind of impact do you truly want to have? What kind of relationships do you want to build? Write it down. Make it your North Star. This single act of clarity can be the compass that guides you through all the difficult choices ahead. Second, pick one relationship and decide to make it more intimate. It could be with a customer. Instead of just a transaction, how can you make them feel genuinely cared for? It could be with an employee. What's one unexpected thing you can do this week to show them you see them as a whole person, not just a worker? It could be with your community. Is there one small, local cause you can support, not for the PR, but simply because it's the right thing to do? Mojo is built one relationship at a time. Finally, embrace the idea of business as a craft, as an art form. Whatever you do, fall in love with the process of doing it exceptionally well. Find the beauty in your work, whether you're writing code, making sandwiches, or storing boxes. That passion is contagious. It's what will attract the right people to your side and inspire them to join you in building something that truly matters. That was a summary of Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. We've explored the core principles and the most powerful stories from the book today, but I have to be honest with you. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a great meal. You can see what it looks like, but you can't taste it. The real magic of this book is in the details, in the texture of the stories, and in the quiet moments of reflection it inspires. This summary is designed to give you a framework, to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If any of the ideas we've discussed, choosing greatness over bigness, building a company with soul, finding the mojo, have sparked something in you, then I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning business principles. It's an experience that can fundamentally change how you think about work, success, and what it means to lead a fulfilling life. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please do me a small favor and hit that like button, and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that these journeys are worthwhile, and it ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.